This is the psychological emergency procedures specifically for the administrators. So if a teacher or anyone says like a student has suicidal or homicidal ideations, we pretty much use the same process. So we would start with briefing, get the details, pull the student, and then we would do the assessment. And then based on the information, we would use that information when we call crisis management. And then we would also call parents to come pick them up. And then as we talk to crisis management, these are the different recommendations they usually would give us based on if it's low risk, medium, or high. So low risk, usually it means like counseling, and we give them an emergency referral list. Medium risk would be like same day appointment with a psychiatrist if they have one, or to go to one of the psychiatric hospitals for an evaluation. High risk would be like immediate transportation to a hospital. And if if parents aren't available, the police here can transport. And then after that, we would just document. We have a crisis spreadsheet. If school police are already involved, we would update them with minimal information that doesn't break confidentiality. And then we try to follow up within 3 days of them coming back to school. So we use the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale. We've talked a lot about this with teachers too, that talking about suicide doesn't put the thoughts of wanting to kill themselves in their head. It's already there. We're just like trying to get all the details as possible. So you can follow this, or you can just kind of ask and then just ask naturally, like how the conversation goes, and then fill this in as you get that information, or you can specifically like go down the list. But usually I'm going to start with like, okay, you say you're having thoughts of suicide. Like, what kind of thoughts are you having? Are you having thoughts of wanting to hurt yourself, kill yourself? Are you having thoughts about not wanting to be here anymore, not wanting to live? And then they'll tell you which kind of thoughts. And so if they start to say, no, I want to kill myself, then I'm like, okay, how would you want to kill yourself? Like, are you starting to think about that? And if they say, yeah, well, how are you wanting to do it? Oh, I want to take pills. Okay, what kind of pills do you want me to take? Do you already have those pills? And kind of just assessing to see if they already have those needs already. But if they say like, yeah, I'm having thoughts of killing myself, but I don't want to do anything about them, then that's where you would kind of stop with all this. And then we usually ask about like, have you ever tried to kill yourself in the past to see if there's a history of it? And if they have, then you would do the same thing, like get all the details of how they did it in the past.
Is that question also like with like relatives? Like, do you ask like if it's a pattern like in families, or not really? That doesn't really happen.
I mean, that would help with like the history of it, and that would definitely increase risk, because if they do have family members who have committed suicide, that does increase the risk of them committing suicide.
But there's nothing that it's okay documented.
Yeah. Yeah, and so usually too with the crisis, you don't want to really go into processing. So like if they're talking about like wishing they were dead, and you can ask like, oh, okay, like what's going on, and you can start to dissect a little bit, but that's like a whole different process. That would be like counseling and going in depth about these kinds of symptoms that they're having.
And this is just like figuring out like
this is just the crisis moment. I mean, you can always fill this out and then go back to it and be like, okay, well let's talk about whatever. Yeah, I think. And then, so this questionnaire, so that anyone can do this, including APs, and they have examples like of the kinds of questions you can ask yourself. And then, so based on the information, so that as far as like teacher roles or administrator roles, they don't have to kind of do the guesswork of what kind of level of urgency it is. Then they would call that the psychological services or crisis management, and then they would tell them like, oh, they got it. They rated a 5 or they rated a 6 or whatever, and then based on that, the crisis management will tell them. But like for us, this will help us determine, what the level. We did add techniques for talking with suicidal youth, specifically for administrators. And then HISD requires a safety plan. There is like data that kind of question the effectiveness of safety plans, but it is part of HISD's process. And it's just really simple. people I can talk to. So I usually ask them like, who are people you can talk to? And if they've only listed like their friends, then I'll be like, okay, while you're on campus, who are some adults you can talk to?
Oh.
When you're at home, who are some adults like specifically? And then asking them like, what are some things that help you? Like even if it doesn't cure it all, like what are things that help you just a little bit? But this will also help indicate like if they can't list anybody, or they can only list like one friend but no adult, or they can literally think of nothing that will help them. That can sometimes increase the risk of potential suicide. And so, yeah, and then you would just have to sign that.
Support person, would that be like a parent, or would that be the person filling out
the person filling it out? Mm-hmm. Well, like in this case, it would either be me or an administrator.
Okay. It has to be not a teacher.
Not a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this is the referral list that we created. The top half are just general counseling referrals in this area. The only problem, though, is that some of them are starting to get waitlisted. These are emergency psychiatric hospitals. Some behavioral also can do emergency psychiatric services, but these we usually recommend first. And then on the back, we have specialized counseling referrals, like LGBT services, trauma, grief, sexual violence, substance abuse, and then these are emergency, like basic needs referrals.
Okay. And this is something like the team here created, or HISD?
No, our team created this.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's the guidelines we give for the administrators. Yeah. So I don't know if you have any questions about the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale.
So how do they know like the rating number? Like you mentioned like a 5 or something, like how does that work?
Because there's only 6 questions.
Okay.
And they build off of each other. So it says like, if you ask questions 1 and 2, these are the 2 that you will ask every student. Yeah.
Okay.
And then based on those answers, if you say yes to number 2, then you would ask 3, 4, 5, 6. If you said no, then you would go directly to 6.
Oh, okay.
And then there's only 6 questions, so then they'll ask like, oh, like pretty much like how many did you check yes on?
Okay, and then that gotcha.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess the difference is, so the reason why I like this one, it's the same, like these questions are the same, but then it has for the past month and then lifetime, so that helps me because I do go into the history. But then they have a section on the intensity of their ideation, so like it talks about like how frequently are you having these thoughts. When you do have these thoughts, how long do they last? And then are you able to control them, or how, like with how much difficulty can you or can you not control these thoughts? And then there's a section about like deterrence and then reasons for ideation. So like I guess for me, since I do help try to figure out the risk level, for me this is more helpful to determine all of that. Like this makes sense for the administrators and folks.
Yeah, because it's
right.
Short, it's simple, and it's something they can do quickly.
Exactly, and they don't have to make that determination.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I like this one. And then on the back, if they have had suicide attempts in the past, then it goes more into detail about what kind of suicide and stuff like that.